Often the term fantasy conjures visions of unicorn horns, fairy wings, and even elfin ears. And while far-off worlds, magical items, and epic medieval battles fill many fantastical stories, a dark side exists, deep in the mind's imaginary umbra. It is a place of vampire kisses, imprisoned gods, and fallen angels. A world where the dead can return to enact justice, or sometimes it's a broken kingdom where friends have fallen victim to wicked gnome kings and headless witches. There are times when it's a seductive world of gothic allure, while at other times it's a spiraling nightmare of twisted oddities. Tonight we'll explore a different type of fantasy, a dark fantasy. So come and dip into the shadows with us right here on Dispatches from Outside the Box.
In the spaces, things exist. In the lines that form the network of your mind. Behind the retinas of imagination are the particles of refuse that made you who you are. Turn off, shut your eyes, and listen to Dispatches from Outside the Box.
Person is on.
Hey, who's a degenerate back there?
Hey, people sneaking in here.
Sneak it in.
Hey, everybody. I'm C Michael Lanning, independent artist and mad scribbler. Also panelists here on Dispatches from Outside the Box. Before we get into meeting our panel for this evening, make sure you like, subscribe, share. Like, subscribe, share, let your neighbors know, ring the bell and all that. All interlopers welcome. Yeah.
I won't be long. We're all in chicken comas here.
Yeah.
And Daphne, you have no idea how close you came to me buying you one of those chickens.
Oh no!
I knew you wanted one.
I do not need one of those chickens. I was like, are you like at a Goodwill or something? What is that?
That was one of those things that I saw it. I said, Daphne's been so nice to me. She needs this chicken.
No, I do not need this chicken. if that's me being nice, you have to start being mean to you now.
Oh boy. No, that's what JD said. We swung around to the topic of divorce, and he says, "You buy her that chicken, that's probably going to happen to me."
Oh well, Randy, now that you showed up, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, sir?
No.
Mitch.
No, I'm only here to say hello. We're all deep in chicken comas. I took them out for a chicken dinner up at Frankenmuth. They'll tell you about it later.
Right.
But Dave spent a half an hour on the John, and never mind. But anyway,
right? Yeah. Well,
yeah. You don't want to know that. That's dark. That's dark enough fantasy for me. Mike, hello. Mitch, hello. How are you?
Randy, it's good seeing you, man.
It's interesting seeing a kind of a picture, a manga looking picture. Who is that? Anyway,
it's from my book.
Is it?
Yeah, Yeah.
Your guy draws just like manga.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's the whole
everybody.
shtick for this one.
Love y'all. I've got company. I'm not gonna hang around, but have a good time. I'm nice to see you have a full house. I was hoping to catch Stone if he was around.
Oh yeah, no, he's not.
But Michael, it's good to see you. Mitch, it's great to see you. Daphne, always, and thank you so much for the art and the toy.
Oh, no problem.
Everything that you here, JD, take this. Here, JD, take this. I looked at it and I said, she really didn't have to do that.
I did, sir.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. But I do appreciate it. See ya. It's coming by in the chat. See you, Anita. All right. Take it easy, everybody. Have a great show. I will be back tomorrow night since since you still have me on and I can still plug. Tomorrow night, Zimcast, I will be there.
Okay.
I don't know who else might be with me, but I'll be there. See, I hope you'll show up. Stone, if you're out there, hope you show up. Mitch, Mike, you're welcome too if you want to join in. We're just gonna sit around and talk without any type of make it. And without any type of theme or long production number with a big countdown at the front and all that. So, all right. See everybody. Love you all. Have a good show. Good night. We're all in chicken comas. Like I said, we'll be lucky to be awake in an hour. So later. See ya.
See you guys. Someone's been drinking.
God bless her.
That was hilarious. Oh man.
So anyway, Mitch Rogers, introduce yourself.
Yes. I am Mitch Rogers. I am a writer, creator, writer, and artist of my horror comic book, The Boger, and the Flesh and Blood collection, which I've just started up again. And yeah, that's basically all I've done so far, amongst other things, but I can't remember.
Yeah, I mean, Randy comes in here, he just throws the whole thing off, man. Of course, we have our guest panelists tonight. Thank goodness. Starting off with One Hot Michael Odin. Introduce yourself, sir.
Well, my name is Michael Odin. I'm the founder of Nine Realms Publishing and writer of books like Elysian Fields, The Embrace, and most recently, my stupidly fun Roman history parody, SPQR's Bizarre Adventure, inspired by the hit manga/anime JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Oh my god!
So
yeah, I'm so looking forward to getting that book.
it's a blast. I'm so happy, and I'm already starting work on the second book.
Yeah.
And I came up with the name last night. Daphne already knows.
Yeah.
It had been plaguing me for months because I knew what was it going to be about, but I don't like to start writing until I have the title. And man, it came to me yesterday, and I was like,
yeah,
it's
epic. It's epic.
So you don't like to start writing until you get a title, huh?
It's something it's a weird thing for me because titles, when I think it was my high school literature teacher, he was a good title should be able to encompass everything that you're trying to tell in the story and engage your audience and get them excited and everything like that. And so it was something that I would always fixate on. Before I can write any script on anything, it's just I've got to make sure that I've got the title right. It's got to be good.
Okay, cool. And of course, we also have with us the daring, dashing Daphne Lane.
Yeah, sure. Yes. Hello, I'm Daphne. If you don't know already, I'm Daphne Layton. I'm a cartoonist, illustrator, and comic book artist from New York. I have been self-publishing since 1992 because I don't know any better, and I am known for the not dark fantasy, from the animal fantasy adventure Tall Tales, which is now funding on Kickstarter as we speak. Links in the show notes below or in the chat. And I am known for my other not dark fantasy, medieval fantasy soap opera, Eagle Raven, Air the First Unicorn, which is in pre-launch on Kickstarter. So sign up to get notified when this campaign goes live in August. I am also co-host with Nita Lanning on the Ragin to the Vlogs every Monday and Friday on this very network. And you can read both my comics online at Tall Tales, TAILS online.com and eagleworks.com, where you can check out all my videos. You can also check out all my videos on how I make my comics here on the Ragin 2 network through my website, through my channel at Daphne Lage Art, because we simulcast. So you can always see me here until you're fed up. So
there you go. Hey, well, if she's not on this show,
hey, Daphne. Hey, Daphne. I just had a realization while you were going through your biography. I am as old as your comic book career.
Yes, you are. Because you're the last infant. Yes, you are, sir.
This is the one place where I get to feel like a kid again.
Oh my God.
I'm usually like the youngest person on every panel.
Right. Yeah, no.
Oh, goodness.
So, look, imagine how I feel.
So we also have in the chat, we have Grant Lankard. Hello, Grant.
Hello.
Cameron Christopher Payne. How's it going, Cameron? And of course, JD would like to let us know that Randy did kidnap him, but he's still alive.
He's still alive, yes.
We have proof of life now.
Yes.
So do we have a picture of him with the newspaper?
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, at least we have him with the Realm comic that he will probably steal from Randy's collection.
That's an important issue is that my coffee mug. No, it's not. You have the white one. This one's mine.
Okay.
So anyway,
fight.
So anybody jump in here. How exactly would you define dark fantasy? Is there a definition that can really pinpoint what dark fantasy is?
Wow, I mean, you had some movies in your intro. That very nice intro, by the way.
Oh,
that I wouldn't have classified as dark fantasy, but it makes sense that it is. I mean, yeah, that Return to Oz.
Yeah,
I mean, that's definitely
that
dark
thing gave
fantasy.
me nightmares as a
The
kid.
Wheelers, the Wheelers.
That
Have you
is
seen the original? If you look at the original Baum, is it Baum books? But yeah, the Wheelers are just as gross in the actual illustrations as they are.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah, but look,
always fascinating.
Yeah, look, the Cell. I didn't, and already this is already the second fantasy episode that we're doing that has Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yeah, right. He's all encompassing.
Right, no,
I guess
really.
that's something. We're doing space opera next week. I'm sure there's something out there.
There's something out there.
Oh yeah,
Really
yeah, sure.
So, I mean, oh my God, anything by Tarzim. Come on, it's like really. I mean, which also brings me to his other movie, Immortals, which if you haven't seen, I mean, that is an amazing, epic, crazy go nuts movie. So, and I think that would fit in dark fantasy genre as well.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, no. It's a complete, absolutely bonkers retelling of Greek mythology with Henry Cavill playing Perseus, I think.
Oh God, it is what I was thinking of.
Yeah,
please
don't. And it has Mickey Rourke in it. It has Mickey Rourke in it in his most epic villain role. And
is that Stephen Dorff with Stephen Dorff and John Hurt?
I think so. Yes.
John Hurt's like Zeus in it, right?
It's no.
Like he's not like.
He's kind of like, I mean, you have to watch it. Trust me.
Right. Yeah,
trust me on this movie.
It came out around like the same time.
Mickey Rourke alone.
Luke Evans is Zeus. Cavill is Theseus. I remember that because I got really annoyed because they got Theseus using a bow at the end of the movie. I just thought that's stupid.
Well, look, nothing in the movie is like, look, if you're not watching this movie for any accuracy whatsoever in Greek mythology.
I remember it was very gold. Wasn't it?
Here's my problem. And Daphne knows exactly what's about to happen. Here's my problem.
Dude, you're breaking up, man.
Breaking up on
You're breaking up, man. You're breaking up just when you're about to
All
go
right,
for the
hold on.
gusto.
Am I back?
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
Did I make it back? Okay.
Yeah, you're
So
here.
here's the problem. You don't need to do much of anything to Greek mythology to try and fix it if you want to do dark fantasy. It is all
No,
fun.
no,
That is true.
no,
That is
absolutely,
true.
no, absolutely not. You know,
Kronos eats his own kids.
right?
like-
Yes, exactly.
Like,
And
let's
then isn't he
just start
castrated,
there.
or didn't he castrate his
Look,
father? I can't
The
remember.
whole thing. Greek
He
mythology.
killed his
the
dad.
whole thing.
Like
Okay.
a Greek
I know someone got
mythology is like-
In
castrated
and
at
of
one
itself
point.
is dark fantasy.
Yeah, like
But that's
every
what-
you eat like, and I think that's the biggest thing that crushes me is whenever I see Hollywood touch Greek mythology, they're always just like, oh, we need to reinvent the wheel with this. Like, or you could just tell the stories that have
Right.
literally stood the test of time of several millennia.
All right, yeah. Oh, why
Like-
do that? But I don't
It's
know.
like-
I don't mind. As someone who's playing really, really fast and loose with Norse mythology right now, I don't mind. I don't mind those retellings. I mean, I figure in the end, it's like, unlike someone in the room, I'm not a historian. so,
Hey man, my
I'm not
paper
doing
hasn't been
academic
published yet.
thesis. I'm not doing an academic thesis on mythology, so I figure it's all fair game.
Mike
so,
said he's
so
got something he's got to live up to, so he can't.
Yeah.
He can't just be.
my whole thing is I'm fine with people taking artistic license.
Mhm.
It's where I have an issue is, like, for instance, Immortals. All
Yeah.
right, what is Theseus known for? What did Theseus do? Everyone should know this. He kills the Minotaur. Like, that is his big thing.
Yeah.
He kills the Minotaur. Hey, Daphne, when
Yes.
does Theseus fight a Minotaur in Immortals?
Well, it's not quite a minotaur.
Mickey
That's the thing.
Rourke's helmet looks kind
Yeah.
of bull-like, and that's
Right.
about it.
Yeah.
That's stupid.
But the thing is that no, it's not. No, it's not. I will fight you on this.
Oh no! It's about to get
I
dark.
think that Mickey Rourke's character and portrayal are fun, but
Right.
like, you could have
Yeah.
done that and just made your own thing that takes place in Greek mythology and have it play off of
Right.
it. But if you
Well,
wanted to
I
tell the
thought,
story of
honestly-
Theseus, tell the story of Theseus.
Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Odin is being that guy doing that thing.
Actually,
It's not going to be. Is this going to
Well-
turn into a debate again? Is it?
Right? It's like, look, let's bring it
You
back.
gotta-
Let's bring it back around.
yeah, let's bring it back. Let's
around.
bring it back to dark fantasy.
Let's fight over the definition of dark fantasy.
I don't really have an argument there. I think that when it comes down to it is what is fantasy, and I consider fantasy to be anything that steps out of the realm of the physical possibility and starts to play in the things that can't happen, right?
Yeah.
Like the moment that you step from reality into clear 100% pure fiction, that's when it becomes fantasy. And so
Right.
what it means to be a dark fantasy is you have that, but the tone is it's dark. It's
dark.
a take that puts you in a place where you feel a bit uncomfortable, you feel uneasy,
Yeah.
you feel on edge.
Right.
It's the difference between Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones.
Correct.
Yeah.
100%. That's
Yeah,
perfect.
that would be I would think that would be I guess like the baseline. you know?
One's driven by optimism and one's driven by nihilism.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And depending on what you're in the mood for. You know?
Well, and I mean, I guess even with dark fantasy, you can have things that are optimistic that are like dark fantasy,
Right.
but
Right.
Well,
generally
does
I find
legend
that it's
does
more nihilistic
legend
thing.
fall? Yeah, but does legend fall under dark fantasy? Even though it kind of has an optimistic ending, but like the tone
It de-
of the movie.
It depends on.
It
I
is-
think that it would ultimately depend on the story.
Right.
There are certainly some stories that are just fantasy that have dark moments, but then there are also plenty of stories that do have that nihilist, like Midas. King Midas is all about how you can be overpowered by your greed. You know, the another obvious one is obviously Oedipus.
Right.
You know, like that is dark fantasy. Like it's a very nihilistic story where everything that can go wrong will go wrong.
Well,
it's not like
you said, the whole myth of the Titans and Kronos.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's
But then when you look at the other side of things, you know, Theseus, I'd say all in all, pretty positive story. You know.
Oh, he's at work. Yes.
This is.
Well, and see that's the thing, because like if you say, like, we're talking about the cell, and I don't know what triggered me to use the cell, but I was like, well, you're in his mind, so it's these fantasies and everything that you're dealing with, and you're dealing with the serial killer. So it's like, yeah, that's a pretty dark fantasy,
right?
You know, so I think it might even have a broader term or a broader scope to it than traditional fantasy or high fantasy or sword and sorcery we were talking last week.
Right. Yeah. Well, you see, you had to put the Crow in there too, which is kind of like urban fantasy, dark fantasy.
Right.
You know, probably like the Underworld series. That would be dark fantasy. Yeah. You know, so these types of fantasy, this type of fantasy, it doesn't. Yeah. So there's the distinction between sword and sorcery and just fantasy in general.
Because, God, here we go again.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know. We had people last week. We had people fighting in the chat over that.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You know?
Wait, what was this?
They were fighting over what was high fantasy, low fantasy, sword and sorcery.
It was a hot mess. It was a hot mess.
That's like something that I've never understood the difference. I just like it's like, to me, I mean, obviously high fantasy tends to have like a more like high medieval, like post Vulgate saga Arthurian feel to it, but I'm not going to go and get into like a massive debate on that, because I love that stuff, and I'm not going to be able to just differentiate. It's just like it's all lumped into that. I love it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's why I say, like, when you take the Crow and because you always hear people say it's superhero, but it's not really a superhero.
It's a revenge fantasy. Full stop. And like, this is one of the things. So, you know, the Embrace is my character, and the Embrace takes a lot of notes from the Crow. But the thing that separates it is that the Embrace is actually a superhero book. The Crow, Eric Draven doesn't want justice. He doesn't want to move on. He is angry. And if you read the 10th anniversary edition of the book, where James O'Barr put in pages that he did not have in the original because he was still just too close to losing his wife. He still was processing it. The ending is like way better in the updated version. I highly recommend it, because it actually gives some kind of closure. But Eric's just angry, and he's just killing. There is no sense of justice here. Right. And that's one of the things that defines what a superhero is trying to be constructive, right? They're trying to,
it broke up.
Yeah, it's like he's streaming from his phone, so
you
we're
got us on the edge of our seats.
Yeah, I know. So it's like we're gonna have some technical difficulties because of that. Yeah. You've gone full AI.
Oh goodness!
Right.
Here you
go.
Let's see. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
God, this is fun.
Right.
And I hesitated putting the Crow in there on those grounds, but I was like, it really does have that feel to it. I mean,
I don't consider it dark fantasy. I kind of always have.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what I was going to get to, is like at the end of the day is the thing that makes it difficult for the Crow is that it's grounded in this gritty and dingy environment that feels so real. But at the end of the day, the whole point is that this person's spirit is so angry it can't move on. It's been hurt. Its soul has been poisoned with anger, and so it can't move forward. And like that's something that I was going to say comes into the Embrace, but rather than it being a story of the character trying to to move forward with anger, it's about his kid wants him to let that go. His kid wants him to let that go, and he wants it, there is justice being served, and so that's where you can have that being a superhero story. But the Crow itself, it's not a superhero story. It's barely even an anti-hero story. It is a man getting revenge.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, and now he does some things here and there
and the thing is, though, it's non-cathartic revenge. That's the thing.
Yeah,
like it doesn't. That's
the beauty of the new. That's the beauty of the new ending is he has a conversation. Like one of the things that I felt that the movie had such a missed opportunity on were the conversations between Eric and the bird, and in the ending. In the new ending that James put in the 10th anniversary edition, the final 5 pages are new pages of Eric and the Crow being like, "Do you feel better now?" And they have this discussion, and eventually by the end of it, Eric decides to move on, and it's such a better ending than what they had initially. It's so good.
Yeah. I mean, I think that. Well, I'm one of the book was better jerks. So it's like, so I completely recommend people actually read the comic rather than the movie. It made some artistic licenses in there that to this day I'm still salty about. So.
Well, but even still, even on those grounds, considering what they did, because there's a lot of poetry that was wrapped into to the book. And considering when this came out was like 94, 93, like that, it used that day and age to really, it still portrayed the feel that the comic had, and so was it.
I would agree with that, and ultimately that was the inaccuracies were the studio. Like the director apparently really wanted to stay as close to the book as they could, but the studio was like, nope. We got to make Eric a rock star so that we can bring people in.
Because
and then they had the whole thing, and then they had the whole thing with Brandon Lee dying on set. So then they had that to jump on. So because
in the comic he's supposed to be like a run of the mill off the street, every guy. And
you don't even really know what he does. You don't even really know what he does for a living. You know that he's good with
fixing up a house, wasn't he?
Yeah,
well, you see, the thing that really got me that they had to change I know why they changed it because it's programming. Is that the crime that starts the whole thing is supposed to be random? And completely. Just completely useless, kind of it's just it bad. Literally, he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Right. Yeah. But in the movie, they kind of had to do it they deserve to be targeted.
Yeah.
So
how about the other aspect of in the movie? None of the people feel remorse for what they did. But in the book, Fun Boy was when they were doing everything. Fun Boy was like, "This isn't a good. We shouldn't be doing this. There is an actual voice of reason." I thought that is something that is that added into the element because it makes it more human.
But that requires nuance on part of executives, and we can't get that.
Well, you think, and I get what you're saying, but I think the issue came in where. That definitely wouldn't sit well with audiences. That something happens to somebody just randomly because that's too scary. That's too
exactly, and that's why I say that I understand that they changed it, but it's still not the story.
And you took Tom Dollar and made him like the big the big
Yeah,
bad.
it's like
I
exactly.
genuinely
like-
thought that was a mistake, though.
Yeah.
I'm right there with Daphne because
Yeah.
it's scary, but that was the whole point. James, the
Yeah.
story of Eric and Shelley specifically came
Yeah.
from Aubert had seen like a newspaper article about a teenage couple getting murdered over a plastic engagement ring.
Yeah.
It's just a random crime of violence because somebody saw a ring that they thought that they could pawn, and it turned out to be fake.
Right.
Yeah. King Midas had donkey ears. Rion
Yeah,
stuck
he
on
did the original.
Right.
Yeah, in the original
And,
tale,
so-
yeah.
similar to King Solomon.
Right.
Black
But
Rose
I mean, but
Comics
here's-
as
yeah.
Ogden.
Right.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Of course,
I
you
am
say,
here.
"Hey, B Rose, what's up, B Rose?"
So now here's the thing though. So it's like, so what's the appeal of dark fantasy? Because dark fantasy is actually kind of dark stories in general are such my jam. And so what's the appeal? What like is this just a topic that you just chose for the show, or do you have like an actual preference for it?
For me, no, I definitely have a definite preference for dark fantasy. Absolutely, that is that's I guess like you said, it's my jam too. I enjoy that because I feel like when you talk about dark fantasy, there's, like I said, there's a broader scope into what fits into that. For instance, you could take let's say you take vampires, which is a common thing, and you put them in a certain situation, like you said, Underworld. Underworld's not a horror, even though it has a horror element to
Right.
it.
Yeah.
But
It's
because of the story, because of the story behind it, it's not really a horror.
Right.
It's a fantasy.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I gravitate towards it. Look at for instance, and I put a couple of Neil Gaiman stuff in there, but like Sandman.
Yeah.
Where do you classify Sandman?
Dark fantasy,
I would consider that dark fantasy, absolutely.
I would consider that too.
And speaking of dark fantasy, there needs to be like a moment of celebration because, and you know, this might just be the unabashed weeb in me coming out, but
because you have to talk about Berserk, right?
yes, Kentaro Miura's Berserk is continuing. I am so excited. I am so pumped. It is being continued by his best friend and his two disciples, and the rule of thumb for production is if Kentaro Miura didn't say it was going to happen, it's not getting in the book.
Right.
And I'm very excited. The last chapter would have been a terrible place to end the series. I saw everyone.
Well, you know, he had to do something inconvenient and die and shit.
Yeah, I know, dick.
All right, so here's the deal. And y'all can hold this against me. I know the book. I have no idea what it's about. So
explain
to me why this is such a phenomenon, because I've seen on so many bookshelves.
So
everything that you know is based on it comes from this book. All the tropes in dark fantasy that you know is from this book.
Really?
Berserk really. I don't even like calling it a manga or a comic. I call it visual literature. Kentaro Miura in Berserk creates such a fascinating storytelling about the perseverance of the human will and how it can pretty much overcome anything by just taking this guy. And if you thought Job had it bad in the Bible, this guy makes what Job went through like a freaking cakewalk.
Yeah.
And just constantly getting shit on, but it doesn't matter. He just keeps going. And, you know, the Black Swords and arc and everything, it's really funny because when you first read it, it's like, this is okay.
I get the AI. Dude, you're breaking up again.
Oh,
Google's taking over.
That's right. Oh no, it's sentient. It's sentient.
Am I back?
Right.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Right. Okay. The long and the short of Berserk is that kind of like imagine Game of Thrones if it was done through the lens of Clive Barker's Hellraiser.
Oh my god.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Accurate.
Yeah.
Also, Griffith is one of the best antagonists ever, and he's probably my favorite character of the series. You can at me about it all you want, but I freaking adore Griffith. I think that he is one of the best written characters ever, and the fact that anyone who knows anything about Berserk will go, I hate that guy, just instinctively, just shows how well he was put together. I freaking adore Griffith.
Well, you see, but that's the thing. It's like, you know, and he's such a complicated character too, because it's like he's, oh my god,
he's the fallen hero.
He really is. He's and the thing is though, you're supposed to hate him. That's the thing.
But that's the thing. And you know what, Daphne, we can't say anymore because what she needs to do is you need to forget everything that we just said about Griffith and read it, because when you get through the Golden Age, your heart is going to be ripped out.
Yeah,
that is how good this character is.
Yeah,
it's been around for years, huh?
Yeah, it's I think from like 82.
Right back,
I think he started. I think it was like I said, every 89. I mean, like I said, every like dark fantasy trope can originate. You could trace it back to Berserk. It's like it's really funny to see how many, and like I said, it's like and mind you, and it's like, and he based a lot of his stuff on Hellraiser. He was a huge fan of Clive Barker, and it's all over. It is all Clive Barker's hands are all over this.
Well, that's good. In fact, one of my favorite books was written by Clive Barker, which was
and here we go.
Thief of Always.
Right? Is Hellraiser dark fantasy?
I would consider it more straight horror with fantastical elements, but Thief of Always I would consider dark fantasy.
Oh, Thief of Always, yeah. Which
Thing or Thief?
I can't remember if it's a Thief of Always. I believe it is.
Right.
The Thief of Always.
Right. And then you have Nightbreed. And then you have Nightbreed.
Oh my god!
Too.
Now Nightbreed
kind of skirts the line a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I mean, what you're dealing with there is it's funny because the monsters are the
heroes,
the good people. Yeah, they're the oppressed. They're the downtrodden.
Now, the book Cabal that Nightbreed's based on, I would consider that straight dark fantasy.
Really?
Because it's less. I mean, it's got some like horror elements to it, but it's very much within that fantastical mood and setting instead of just being just scary.
So, but the book, it only kind of lightly touched on in the movie, huh? I mean, it's not really.
Yeah, because they don't go into. I mean, obviously for budget and time, they couldn't go into the whole mythology of what Baphomet is and what Cabal. I was at the end of the movie, he becomes the Messiah Cabal and like what that means and what they're going to do after they leave Meridian. But yeah, it does go heavily into like the mythology he created. I wish he'd do more stuff with it, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that might come up. But
I think
because he continued Hellraiser with Scarlet Gospels. I'm sorry, go ahead, Daphne.
No. I mean, it's just that, like going back to the question, like what's the appeal? And it's like, so is it just like we just like to watch horrible things happen to characters sometimes?
Yes, that's actively what it is. There is a natural attraction to human suffering. I mean, think about it like this: people used to go watch executions for fun.
Yeah.
Like gladiator fights and everything that we are. Hell, even a car accident, everyone slows down.
Everybody, exactly.
Everyone there is a fascination with grotesque, and I mean that's why. I mean, hell, it's why Berserk is so popular. You will see some. It's as Daphne said, there's definitely a lot of Clive Barker inspiration there. You will see some screwed up stuff when you enter into Berserk.
Right. Yeah.
It is some of the best art you'll ever see, but it's like, oh my god, what is that?
Right.
That is that is, I didn't even know that existed in my nightmares, but it does.
I mean, the thing is, I kind of wonder like how much like Junji Ito is also inspired by Berserk as well, because there's a lot of sometimes there's overlap in their creature designs too, unless they're all swiping from Clive Barker.
There's a possibility. I mean, if you
All
did, like for
roads lead
instance,
to Clive
Nightbreed
Barker.
had some. Yeah, well, if you look at Nightbreed and some of the creature designs of Nightbreed, which I'm not quite sure how much Clive Barker had to do as far as
Well, it had a lot to do with it.
Or even that matter, in The Thief of Always, if you go and you look at the illustrations in there of those characters, and so I can see it. Junji Ito, that's just horror. So
that's straight up horror. Yeah, Junji Ito is straight up horror. There's nothing. It's even something as fantastical as Uzumaki that it's horror. I would classify that as horror.
Well, that's because it's all psychological.
So I guess that begs the question: where does the line get drawn between dark fantasy and horror?
Right.
Because there's certainly a lot of overlap between the two.
Yeah.
But when does one become the other?
I would probably consider it horror when the intent of the piece is to scare or frighten. Like overall, not just like a scene here or there, but the overall like mood and the overall storytelling is trying to frighten and scare people.
Right.
Well, I mean,
dark fantasy could be very,
to play devil's advocate, Edgar Allan Poe is considered to be one of the great horror writers, but most of his stuff is there to make you sad. Like I read Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah, it's what is it? It's more like what is it? It's like gothic. It's more like, gothic horror. Like emo horror.
The only one of his things that I felt like was actually like intense and trying to make me uncomfortable like that, was like Telltale Heart.
Right.
Yeah. But even that though, it's not horror as much as it's suspense.
Right. Yeah.
Like, but like Fall of the House of Usher is a depressing book. It's not particularly scary, but it is a horror classic. So, but like I would also say that you could make an argument that there's dark fantasy there.
Right.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So where do we it's a very interesting thing. Is there even a line?
Well, I mean, who classifies these things anyway?
I don't know.
Because look, last week we had everybody bugging out in the chat, over a classification that for all we knew somebody just pulled out of their asses.
Right.
So
what I heard,
these are my credentials.
Right,
and this is how I will classify it.
Right, or is this something that Barnes and Noble made up just to be able to sort books better, or something,
like teen paranormal romance now.
Right, exactly. Like someone is making up these classifications. Yeah, it might be a bookstore thing to tell you. Now that I think about it, because someone's sitting there making up categories.
Having worked at a Barnes and Noble, they do not have their shit together near enough to be that coordinated.
Well, corporate. We're not talking about the retailing. Corporate has to come up with this.
Yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying is they don't have their shit together that well.
Well,
But when you look at that, you kind of go. I think it could come from that aspect. Maybe not necessarily a bookseller, but sellers are salesmen in particular.
Right.
Because working in a video store, you'd have somebody come in and they said that they like action adventure, and they could be talking Indiana Jones while you're thinking I'm trying to think of something.
Lethal Weapon.
Action adventure. Lethal Weapon. Like as a cop.
Yeah. That's true, right? Yeah, that would be an action adventure, sure.
Yeah. So it kind of.
It's also a Christmas movie.
That's
Gremlins, dark fantasy.
Gremlins would be a dark fantasy. That's true.
Yeah, I would say Gremlins would be dark fantasy.
Right. I think it helps for us to
Die Hard. Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
Die Hard is a Bruce Willis movie. That's what you were told.
And that's the thing is like every single time that I try to think of like a way to differentiate, like even if you go with, if the conflict of of the story. The bad guy of the story is effectively the dragon. Then the horror movie is the thing where the dragon is effectively the protagonist, right? Like the dragon that is the bad guy is the object of focus, and it's all about the dragon destroying everything, right?
Right.
Like,
but the thing is, though,
but that only goes so far because not every horror film's a monster movie.
Right, but not every monster movie is a horror movie, and not every dragon is a fantasy movie.
Exactly.
Right.
And when I use the term dragon there, it's not necessarily like it's whatever it's
the MacGuffin.
It's whatever the force of nature is that is opposed to the human element.
Right. But yeah, it's like because to me it's like, you know, I'm kind of like more hyper focused. Like whenever I just hear the word fantasy, it's just kind of like medieval-ish.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I mean that's kind of like even if something like Underworld, where they're using
Man
swords.
of the West.
You know, they're using swords. So it sticks as fantasy in my head.
Right, sword and sorcery. I got you.
Yeah. You know, no fighting in the chat.
But there is no sorcery in Underworld, though.
Right, there is no sorcery in it, but it is
there is
fantasy.
It's just a different type. It's a different type of sorcery. It's blood magic through the fact that like all of the vampires are in cryogenic sleep and they get revitalized by the blood. It's blood magic.
Right, yeah.
It is sorcery.
But the thing is though, is that it's not the definition that we were fighting over last week.
Right. Oh no.
Yeah, it's not.
So from based off of what Daphne is saying is when she hears the word fantasy, Aragorn just struts out in front of the black
absolutely
saying,
absolutely
"Men of the West."
More like it's like that is no trinket you carry. I carry nothing, indeed. That's what I think of.
But you say, see, that's what when you say
in a corner.
When you say that type of fantasy, though, it kind of encompasses that the unicorn, the elf, and everything.
Yeah.
But when you have dark fantasy, now you have such a broader term. For
There's
instance,
a werewolf in here. No, okay,
yeah.
Don't bring the werewolf in.
The Prophecy.
I love
the movie,
that.
The
I was
Prophecy,
so giddy that you had that in the thing. I saw that. I was like, oh, you got Prophecy in there. This is, and you had one of my favorite scenes in the movie too, where you got Viggo Mortensen's Lucifer showing up. Viggo Mortensen's Lucifer has one of the best lines of that film.
That's go ahead. I'm sorry.
where he's talking to Daggett and is like, do you know what hell is? It's not flaming. It's not like a blistering hot flames or cold fields of ice. It's being removed from God's sight, and there is nothing more painful for an angel.
Although speaking of dark fantasy,
that's so good.
You know, speaking of dark fantasy, though, Constantine.
The show or the really bad Keanu movie?
I will fight you.
I was thinking of the movie.
I will fight you again, Odin.
Matt Ryan is John Constantine.
I will fight you.
Okay. Well, I do not hate the Keanu Reeves movie. I do have to agree. Matt Ryan as Constantine has been a definite for me. Constantine, not Legends of Tomorrow Constantine, but
well, you see, I have no connection to the comic that it's based on, so I'm literally like looking at the movie as what it is,
breaking my heart,
stomping on it, stomping. I'm stomping.
Sure, it's Alan Moore. Constantine is Alan Moore. So there you go.
I'm reveling in your pain, Michael.
Yeah. Well, the moment that you got Keanu to play a character that is supposed to be British, you've failed because they already tried that in the Bram Stoker's Dracula film. And
I will fucking fight you. I am going to fight you to the end of this.
I can hear the surfer British now.
It's like no, I will fight you for Bram Stoker's
Keanu is the worst. They had it perfectly cast in every role except Jonathan Harker. Freaking Gary Oldman's Dracula.
Brilliant.
Inspired.
Brilliant.
Oh yeah,
brilliant.
Yes, you're right. The movie itself is fantastic. Keanu is a crap Jonathan Harker.
I'll fight everybody.
The good thing is he didn't have to do too much. Everybody else kind of carried him along in there.
Oh, but my point is the dude in Constantine who played Lucifer, though.
Ethan Reeves.
Yeah, brilliant. Look, that movie had me when Tilda Swinton showed up as Gabriel. That movie, that's where it's like
Peter Stormare played Satan.
This movie is mine.
Peter Stormare. Okay, yeah, that's right.
Who's great in everything
he's in. Seldom that you see anyone other than Gabriel being the dick. If you have someone that's a renegade angel, it's always Gabriel.
You know,
what is it? Gabriel's just a messenger angel. Give him a break.
Well, no. The thing is, though, if you look at if you read the original agnostic texts, the angels are not what we think they are.
No.
You know, they're not. They are not these benevolent beings. I mean, it's like
they're wrathful. They're fucking scary, and they don't look like people.
Yeah. They're not. You're not supposed to really. You know,
like they don't really have a form. They're like balls of white light with freaking 10 wings, a lion's head, a goat's head.
That comes from Ezekiel.
It's whatever Guillermo
that one I take
Del
issue
Toro
with.
Comes up
that
with,
comes from Ezekiel, and that's not the vision in Ezekiel is not an angel. And that needs to be put out there right quick.
Right. Look, there's a reason why the first things they say is "be not afraid." Because nobody knows what they're looking.
They look like something out of Lovecraft. In one book of the Bible, not the Apocrypha, they're like they have like 4 heads and covered in eyeballs and
No, well, it's Ezekiel, and what it is it is symbolic of the glory of God. They're not. There's not angels,
right?
And it refers to seraphim wings, and that's what the idea behind that is.
Right.
But in actuality, he tells you quickly, it's a vision. It's showing you the fullness of the glory of God, and a lot of people think that, and it's like, no, that's not what that means. But
what we think as angels now is just some more Victorian bullshit mixed in with Egyptian, the Egyptian hype. You know,
don't forget cherubs.
Yeah,
Can't forget the cherubs.
The Victorians ruined everything. That's it.
Or made it better. Sits in my opium den.
Well, it was a cherub that was placed at the Garden of Eden with the flaming sword. So what does that tell you about cherubim? not really a fat baby flying around.
Right? No, it's not. No.
Yeah, and how those tiny wings keep those fat babies afloat either?
Right.
Yeah. That like I don't even know where they got that, because it's like everyone goes, "Oh, it's Cupid," and I go, "Yeah, no. Cupid was like Eros was like an adult guy."
Yeah.
He wasn't like.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
Well, it's just like your depiction of Satan with the red skin and the horns. And
you see what it is that's people mixing, just like they're mixing up stuff. And
if you look at like early Christian artwork from like the 1st century, Satan's blue for some reason. Like we think of him as red, but if you see these like old Christian paintings, he's like blue and he's always eating somebody.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I think that's badass. That's just
I think that when it comes, go on ahead, see.
Well, no. Basically, what that comes from is him using color in the palette instead of a literal sense, as a metaphorical sense, and the same thing like with perspective.
Also, it depends on what colors were trendy at the time.
That's true.
That's the reason why the Virgin Mary is always painted in blue, because cobalt blue was kind of like discovered during that time.
It was a big deal.
It was a big deal color to have.
That's legitimate. But as far as like the depiction of like the red and the horns and everything, is I feel like a lot of that comes from, Christianity didn't just happen. Like it spread across areas with lots of different traditions, and everybody had these ideas of what evil spirits looked like. So when you have this thing that is supposed to be the Prince of Darkness and all-encompassing evil, you're going to have these people are already going to have this kind of subconsciously put into their brain. And it doesn't matter that if you actually look at at Lucifer and everything. His name is, bringer of light, and he was supposed to be the most perfect of the angelic host and God's favorite until he rebelled, right?
Yeah.
That's
why when you see all these Renaissance sculptures of
really,
Lucifer, they're all like really hot guys.
Yeah.
Hot guys with wings. It's like it's
Well,
a fallen Lucifer. It's like, oh well then.
Well, you take it though.
Hello there.
Well, you take into consideration what's mentioned about Satan is he's he can present himself as a messenger of light. He could be light, or and then he's also he's a tiger seeking whom he can devour.
Right.
So those type of elements are kind of play into what you're trying to convey.
Okay, I'm gonna piss off the chat right now. Okay, chat, Book of Revelations, dark fantasy or what?
And just like that, Daphne opened Pandora's box.
There you go.
Just dies.
I think last week was bad. Holy fuck.
I have to keep chat busy somehow.
but it has to come from that fascination. But look at that. Let's talk about that for a second. That's one book in the Bible that everybody seems to be fascinated with, whether you're a believer or you're not.
Right.
Is Revelation.
Mm-hmm.
And which is really funny because the book's title is a revelation of Jesus Christ, but everybody wants to focus on the bad shit.
Right.
It's like
that's the fun part.
Yeah, right. The beast and everything
Who
else.
cares about the redemption stuff? We want to see people poked on spikes.
Bring me the lion with 3 heads and shit.
That's what comes back to like Modin was saying with the gladiators and the train wrecks and everything else. Right. It's like and not to get biblical, and I'm sorry, but when you deal with when Paul was talking to one of the emperors when he was witnessing in front of him, the guy wasn't a believer, but he just liked to hear about what would happen just because it creeped him out so much.
Right.
And so that just goes to show you.
But that's kind of right. It's like I guess it's like that's the I guess it might be the main reason why like my favorite book is American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis. Not a dark fantasy, but maybe it is. I don't know.
That's a good question. Let's bring that out.
Depends on if Patrick Bateman is really doing what he's doing or not.
Right, exactly, because that's the question that you don't know in the book. I don't think we're ruining anything for anybody, is that you don't know whether this is all a hallucination. So it's
some
like
parts contradict each other in the book.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's more confusing than the movie was. For me,
the movie, I prefer the book better. I think the director took some liberties with the story in the movie that I think she kind of missed some I thought were very important details in the book. And I don't feel the movie except for Christian Bale as Patrick Bateman, but
was that a good choice? I never read the book.
No, Patrick Bateman. No. Christian Bale's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, Christian Bale is perfect. I mean, technically, the movie could be if certain what I feel were important points in the book weren't changed in the movie.
Ah.
Right. And there was a lot of little annoying ones that. It's a lot of little decisions as opposed to being, this had to change. Because it's American Psycho. There's only so much you can do. But it's kind of like, is Fight Club a dark fantasy?
I don't know what.
Because again, it's like we don't know how much. We don't know how much of it is a hallucination. Pretty much.
See, there you go into psychological. Well, look, for instance, like I included Pan's Labyrinth.
Right.
But that was really what Pan's Labyrinth is falls under what magical reality or whatever the case is. It's not stuff that's really
something
happening.
Like that.
Well, magical realism.
Guillermo purposefully keeps you guessing as to whether it's real or not. Because there's that whole scene with the chalk where you're like, okay, now I don't know what I'm looking at.
Right.
It's like so it's like there's certain aspects to that it's like so it's kind of like I would consider it dark fantasy because of the literal fantasy aspects of the movie. Yeah, you know, the usage of folklore. But the thing is, though, the fantasy is not really the story per se, you know,
right?
You know,
you were dealing with that time. What was it? Was it?
Well, it was
Spanish
Spanish.
Civil War.
Yeah, Spanish Civil War.
Yeah,
my family went through that. It's like, you know, it's like, yeah. Can I ask Mom? It's like, it's like, oh, did you watch Pan's Labyrinth 6? Oh, I've been through that already.
well, because what was interesting about that is it starts off. He starts off very violent.
Yeah,
and by the end of it, that violence lets up. You know, as we get to the end of the war.
Right.
So it's dark fantasy.
But here's the thing, though. If you know the actual history that ending leads to, it's not a happy ending.
Really?
Yeah, it is not a happy ending. The actual history that he's following in the story. So that's why I would actually consider it dark fantasy, because it's not really a happy ending. You know, if you know what happens, you know, after that point. But which pretty much, you know, Franco is in power for until I think like 1974 or something. You know, so fun times. Nothing like a nice fascist dictatorship to get the blood going.
So we might need to see a Pan's Labyrinth 2 coming out eventually.
Well, it's a trilogy. Actually, it's which was it? It's Pan's Labyrinth,
Devil's Backbone,
and Kronos. I think he did a movie called Kronos.
Yes.
But that was modern times. I thought. I'll have to watch it again.
Yeah, so that's the trilogy.
Devil's Backbone was his first movie.
No, his first movie was I want to say Kronos, but I think I'm wrong in that.
Yeah, I'd say I didn't because I didn't watch those two movies, so I don't know the order.
Oh, Devil's Backbone is
because Kronos came first, then it was Devil's Backbone, then he did Blade 2. Then that kind of sprung his career off.
Let me see.
Kronos is actually a very good vampire story, I think.
Yeah, see, I haven't seen that one. I knew that's kind of where Ron Perlman started that one.
But definitely anything that most anything that Guillermo does is dark fantasy.
Yeah. Aside, his first movie is Kronos. Then you had Mimic.
Right.
He did do Mimic. I forgot.
Right. Yeah.
That was an interesting movie. Not great, but I thought the concept was pretty good.
So that brings me to this then. Hellboy. Would we consider Hellboy to be dark fantasy?
Yeah.
It would have to be, right?
I would consider it dark fantasy. Yeah.
With a lot of action.
Well, he's at work, so he probably had to dip for a little bit.
True. So, well, I'll tell you what, let's give him a little bit of time. Let's run some bumps.
Okay. All right. There we go.
We're at the top of the hour. We could do that now.
Yeah, sure.
All right. We'll be right back.
Now on Sunday mornings, longtime independent comics creator Randy Zimmerman brings to you a podcast that talks about the lighter and more whimsical side of comics, the fun side of comics. That's right. Sunday Funnies is back Sunday morning, 9 a.m. on the Raging 2 YouTube channel and on certain Facebook pages. Check it out, won't you? It's special guests, great talk, and a lot of fun as we work to put the fun back in funny books. See you there.
All right. And speaking of funny books, if you have a crowdfunder and you need to mail those out, so you can go and save 5% on your next Gemini mail order by using that coupon code RAGIN2. just go over there, use Ragin 2. And speaking of Ragin 2, we also have some great shows on Ragin 2, including the vlogs. This show right here, Daphne's Eagle Works Live. Zim, of course, you saw Zim earlier decide to pop in here and plug his show and leave. I'm not going to take that personally.
No, not at all.
Anyway. Then, of course, Nerd Bacon on Thursdays. Mike Jimmy over there is Sketchy Saturday. House of Bob every fourth Saturday. Is that right?
Yeah,
Fourth
and the last Friday, the last Saturday of every month.
The last Saturday
yes,
of the month.
Yeah, so the next one should be on June 25th.
All right.
Coming up fast.
And of course, Sunday Funnies at 9 a.m. And of course, JD Calderon's Talking Comics on a Sunday. If you can't get enough of me here today, you can come see me over there Sunday. And if you have any questions or would like to write some hate mail towards anybody,
if you still want to debate with us about
right. If you'd like to tell us what high fantasy is,
exactly.
email us at raginabc@gmail.com. As we always like to say, there's no such thing as a dumb question, but our answers might be.
Hey, we like to keep it fun here.
That's right.
My personal favorite is from South Park. No such thing as a stupid question, just stupid people.
Only stupid people.
Only stupid people. But even then, they can be taught. So there's hope for everybody.
Yeah, but I want to come back to this. He asked about Icarus was an angel until he got close to the sun. But no, not really.
He's not
No,
an
they
angel.
built it
No,
with wings.
no.
They built it with wings.
No. Oh, no.
Oh, hold on.
An angel.
Scholar is a scholar.
No.
Is
Why you've come to the right place to learn.
No. Icarus was the son of Daedalus, who built the labyrinth for King Minos. He and his son Icarus were locked up in Crete, and Daedalus built the wings with feathers and wax, and told his son not to fly too close to the sun, or else the wax would melt. And his son got so excited because he's a kid that he did exactly what dad told him not to do, and he plummeted to his death. And then Daedalus flew around the sea trying to find his kid for a week before he suffered pretty much the same fate. He got exhausted and couldn't keep himself up anymore.
That's really dark, Mike.
Yeah, it is. Welcome to Greek mythology.
Right, yeah. Fun.
Is there ever a happy ending in Greek mythology?
There are some happy endings in Greek mythology, actually. I would say I don't know if I'd call it like
metaphoric
a happy ending, but Medea gets a mic drop.
Well, that's true. Yeah, she gives. Yeah.
And this
depends on how you look at it. There was San Diego Comic-Con. They have this. It's next to a port, and they had a ship there called the Medea. And I go, is that a good idea? I don't think that's a good idea.
Probably not.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
And this one, I
would say
decidedly
no.
What about the creatures Da Vinci saw? I'm not familiar with this. Does anybody know?
You asking two different questions? I mean, can you clarify that?
He goes on, it says the goat man, but I'm not sure. But he also said Santeria, so I don't know.
Right. I mean, because I know that there are oh, I remember that there were like these parchments depicting creatures that Marco Polo saw on his adventures. You know, like dog-headed men and men with faces in their chests and weird animals and stuff like that. And I mean, maybe it's like
maybe.
Yeah.
I'd like to know what he was smoking.
Oh, I was saying, metaphorical speaking, Lucifer got close to God.
Yeah.
But
everything's metaphor.
That made me think. Now I lost my train of thought. Well, I was going to ask something was Man, I hate when that happens.
Yeah.
But we were talking. We were talking
All
about Return
I
to
know is
Oz.
that you guys were asking me while I was arming some people out, and I was like, I can't do that right now.
Oh no, robots! Robots!
Well, you talked
Oh
like
my
Return
God.
to Oz was very dark, and the Wheelers was always
Yeah.
funny because one thing in the book was when Dorothy realized the Wheelers couldn't do anything. They couldn't wheel you over. They couldn't hurt you. It became a different story.
Well, right. I mean, and I think that that's also something metaphor. Just about a lot of fears in general. That it's like how we become frightened of things to realize that it's like, oh wait, this is what I was scared of.
Right?
Yeah. Now, I don't know about the witch that was switching out everybody's heads, but
that seems like a very palpable fear to me.
Yeah, I think so. But to find out that the wheel guys were just scary looking, but didn't really do much. I mean, it's like, we've all had those moments, right?
Well, and what's interesting about that is because really Return to Oz, if you look, they're based on two books. They're based on The Marvelous Land of Oz and Ozma of Oz, which I'm really surprised they haven't taken a hold of and done something with either of those books now. But it was such a mixture. But the whole idea of her being what was it, shock therapy,
right? Yeah,
and everything kind of being TikTok and
yeah.
Why would Hollywood base it off of the actual books now when they could just do their own different take of Oz?
Because if you read Marvelous Land of Oz, it fits into today's social structure quite interesting.
Well, but this is the thing, which could be its own episode. Is like it's like at what point do we have to be like so accurate with everything, or it's like or does a lot of, or just is fantasy in general just something that we should be able to just play in that sandbox and not get so anal retentive about origin?
I think that it's a bit of both. I think that it's a bit of both, and it just depends on what the type of project that you're doing is. Like, it's absolutely fine to play in your own sandbox and everything. And I want to be clear when I made that like little jab. It's not so much about playing in the sandbox and doing your own thing with Oz, so much as not wanting to have to play by somebody else's script, which is
right.
fun.
No, I got you.
But
yeah,
if you want to make an adaptation of something, and even if you're playing in the sandbox, there is a level of knowledge and understanding that you need to have about what you're playing in that sandbox with, so that you because like it's the whole thing of you have to understand the rules before you can break them. You have to understand how the universe works in order for you to be able to tweak it and bend it to your will for your own purposes. And if you don't do that, you come off looking like a jackass, and it doesn't feel authentic. And like that's ultimately what it comes down to. Because like you're right, Daffy. There have been some fantastic, especially with Oz. Sci-Fi had a show that I adored with Zooey Deschanel called Tin Man, which was great. Talk about a great dark fantasy take on Oz, where like the Tin Man was effectively a derogatory term for a cop in Oz. It was so cool. Like I freaking loved that show. And there's definitely something to be said for taking a concept and tweaking it to have your own take and what have you. Absolutely. But I think that you would be hard pressed to find the ones that are better that haven't also taken the time to read all of those books. Whereas you have a lot of guys that are trying to do that stuff now, but they haven't put the time in. They don't understand the universe that they're playing with, and so when you see their adaptations, you just go, this doesn't work. This
Right.
just does. It feels like a big like there's like this feels like there is a genuine disconnect, and it feels like it's missing something. I can't quite put my finger on it.
I'll tell you
But,
one thing that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good.
What-
No, like
One thing that they have done that with, which drives me up the wall and everything, is Alice in Wonderland. The idea
Yeah.
behind Alice in Wonderland is simply this: it doesn't make sense, and it's nonsense.
Which I think makes it terrifying, honestly.
It does.
Because
It
like, I
does.
used to think that Alice in Wonderland was like this
Opium,
whimsical
hell of a
thing.
drug.
Again, it's the, you know, like, oh, it's just a cute fantasy or something. And I was on a plane, I forgot where I was going, and I watched Alice in Wonderland, and that movie, the Disney version, and not, but like the cartoon, the 1970, you know, and it gave me the sweats because I was so
It's an acid
riddled
trip.
with anxiety.
Yeah.
It's a
with the
really
whole
bad
thing.
acid trip.
It like the whole point, you know, the whole idea of and you're in the middle of something with so much nonsense you can't function.
And that's the thing about that one.
The
Yeah.
whole Tea Party scene, it hit different this
Right.
time, you know, this time around, and it's like this, and I go, this is a horror movie.
Because you look at that first song that she sings. If
Yeah.
she lived in a world, her world would be, you know, not. And I
Well,
can't remember the lyrics.
right,
It
yeah.
would be nonsense. They got it right. Everybody else is now done to this where it's just
Right.
weird and wacky and fun.
Right.
No, you missed the whole point.
Yeah.
It's like-
It's nonsense. And
It's
the thing
called
is,
he was on a really, really bad trip from opium, and
Yeah.
like that's how it happened.
That's probably what it was.
too, it was dangerous nonsense. That's
Right.
the
Yeah.
thing. It wasn't just something like just cute and benevolent. It's like that girl was in danger.
yeah.
That
Lewis-
girl was in danger.
And if you
I
ever
remember-
like learn anything about Lewis Carroll,
Yeah.
you know, in his close friendship with his neighbor's daughter Alice,
It depends,
it
you
takes
know.
an entirely different meaning
Well,
after you know that.
Oh well, yeah.
So is that we don't know whether that's an actual thing or not, or whether it was, you know, it's kind of like me and Odin were talking
There's some
about.
pretty
James
disturbing
Barry
paintings
type
of her. Is all I got.
Well, you
Well,
know,
it was photographs, wasn't it? I believe it was
yeah, I
photographs.
mean, which, you know, because it's
Something.
like it's kind of like when me and Odin were talking about Caligula, right? And the thing is, right, and the thing
It's a
is
bit
that
different
we,
with Lewis Carroll because there's
Oh,
a
you
bit.
know?
Well, so here's
You know,
here's
but-
the deal. There's a
but-
lot more primary source material on Lewis Carroll's wackiness than there is on
Right.
Caligula.
right,
Well,
and
but-
it's like, well, you know, but it's again, it's like, yeah, it's
Well,
complicated.
let me say something about Lewis
I get
Carroll
that.
outside of that though. And here's the deal with Lewis Carroll and why he wrote Alice in Wonderland,
Right.
and why he might have the little girl. If you go back, you find a lot of people had
Right.
a little somebody in there
Right.
inspired him. But the fact is, he was a mathematician. He was I think he was a Presbyterian minister. So he was very much about logic. And what he wanted to showcase was what a world would look like
Right,
if it was void of logic.
right,
And that was the whole point.
yeah,
and so-
yeah, like, yeah, it's a horror movie. The cartoon. Like I said, when you're an adult, I think that, but I think that that's what it is. It's like when you're an adult,
It's
that shit hits
unsettling.
different. It
It's
really
a-
is. It really is.
It is super unsettling because I remember
Yeah.
I wasn't crazy about the movie growing up, but it
Right.
never like did anything wrong to me.
Right? Yeah.
I
Exactly.
remember
Yeah.
watching it for, like the first time in years when I was like graduating high school and just going, "What the fuck
Right.
is
Yeah.
this?"
Yeah.
it was
It
just
wasn't
like,
that it
this is not
wasn't
okay.
the cartoon
Yeah.
version for me.
Yeah.
But there was a mini series that used to come on TV every year, and it wasn't the one with the little girl from Waterworld. It was way earlier than that, before Whoopi Goldberg was ever a thought. And basically, I think it came out in the 70s, and they kind of replayed it, but it was very dreamlike. And so it really hit on those elements. I remember that one being. There was a dragon.
Right.
Kind of
Well,
some
there's
really
the
creepy
whole
stuff.
Jabberwock. That's probably the Jabberwock.
It probably, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
You know, it's a whole. Yeah, it's a whole thing. You know, there's a lot more going on than what. Than I guess what most people, because also that's the thing too that kind of doesn't help, how a lot of people they know things because of movies.
Right.
not necessarily because of the source material. So you end
Oz
up
is a
with
big,
all of these,
yeah.
and I think that that's how people get these weird ideas as to what they think certain things are, but it's not.
Right. Well, and
Yeah,
Oz is definitely a victim of that.
Yeah.
The MGM Wizard of Oz is definitely a
Yeah.
victim. It has caused that.
Right. Like to this day, there's a lot of people who still think that the slippers were red when they were silver. The only reason they changed it to red was take advantage of the whole Technicolor technology that was new at the time.
Well,
and red popped on screen.
Yeah, well, the witch wasn't green either. She had a red coat and a patch and everything.
Right. It's like, so it's just like, so it's just really funny to realize just like how people are more informed by the movies that they watch rather than
reading,
the actual source.
They will argue you down.
As a history nerd.
Yeah, exactly.
Welcome to my plight as a history nerd. Do you
it's
know
like,
how insufferable it was when the Assassin's Creed games were coming out every year?
It's like I went through a nightmare trying to find actual like historical record of the Loki myth. I mean, it's like fuck my life with that. It's like Marvel. It's like holy shit. Just where's the North? Where's Wikipedia where I need it?
Because in all the movies, he's always like a villain and stuff. But in the actual mythology, he was more of just a guy that would pull pranks on all the other gods by tricking them into sleep.
I don't know. I would say the Twilight of the Gods tends to disagree with you when he comes back with an army of giant wolves and has all of the Aesir killed.
With all that, right? Broke up.
So it's like, but the thing is though, is that you mentioned Odin. How it's like I know that there was a point where you were able to say your first name, your last name, and people probably went, "Oh, like the god," right? And probably there came a switch over when people started saying, "Oh, like the Marvel movies," right?
Anthony Hopkins,
right?
I've only gotten the Marvel movies.
Oh, you've okay, so you never got it.
Wow. So what does that
I
say about
in
society? Thanks a lot, Mike. That brings
Give me 1 second. I'll be right back.
Right. So that okay. So it's like so we completely just went off the rails.
Well, but I'll bring it. Well, say for instance, okay, like the Alice in Wonderland thing, and you lose that, and he's absolutely right. When you're adapting material, even in dark fantasy, you want to keep it right. But let's look at for instance, Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland.
Right.
I'm sorry. I thought that was a shitstorm.
Well, yeah, exactly. Because it's like, but the thing is, though, at least it's like it was called Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland and not Alice in Wonderland. So you kind of knew what you were walking into, But
well, I'll segue that into with Tim Burton.
Right.
Now, this is a guy that's definitely played in the
dark
fantasy.
Dark fantasy, yeah, definitely. Realm. I think pretty much everything that he does is dark fantasy.
There's maybe an exception here and there, like Big Eyes, but for instance,
and maybe Ed Wood.
Ed Wood, that was dark fantasy, but in a totally different way.
Right? Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But it was still good as far as what it was. But let's say, for instance, Big Fish.
Right.
So would that even be considered dark fantasy? But I guess that's more folklore-ish, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's. It's just kind of like, it's kind of like last week when we were talking about technically if you really wanted to just to show how the word fantasy is so stretched out. Amadeus the movie is a fantasy,
right?
I mean, for the fact that nothing in it is historical at all, on only on the most superficial level that Mozart existed. And the music is real. Salieri existed, but their relationship never existed. Not in the way that was in the movie. that movie never happened. The story never happened. So technically it's a fantasy.
And it was pretty dark.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's like, it kind of doesn't have a happy ending either.
Right.
It's like
What didn't have a happy ending?
Amadeus.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That technically, if you really wanted to stretch the definition of fantasy, that would be a fantasy movie, because only on its most superficial level is it based on reality. Mozart existed, Salieri existed, the Emperor existed, but like everything else in the movie is just completely made up. Yeah.
So, okay. Well, it's getting to be about that time.
Yeah.
So I guess we need to make our
Before Daphne can open another Pandora's box for the chat,
Right.
we might as well.
Oh, now we're going back to Clive Barker, I see.
Right, yeah. All roads, you know what? Yeah, all roads lead to revelations. That's what it is. I mean, come on, even Clive Barker. No, it really does.
You guys need
really
to get that on merch. That needs to be a needs to be a t-shirt.
Roads lead to the Book of Revelations.
and like the backdrop just needs to have Daphne with the biggest shit-eating grin ever. Just be like, all roads lead to Revelation, and that would make it even funnier because people goes like, "Who the fuck is that?" It's like, you're there. Noob.
You had to be there.
That's why you got to put it on the back. Ragin too, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Even works.
Yeah.
So
that's just random Yahoo. What has to do with the Book of Revelation?
Right. Yeah.
Well, heck, now they put everything on the truck, so we could just put it on the trucks.
Yeah, exactly.
All sorts of weird stuff. Daphne, tell us where we can find you.
Oh, well, if you want to hear more of my nonsense or whatnot, you're going to head on over to my main portfolio site at egoworks.com, EGOWRKS, where you can find links to all of my galleries and social media sites, but I mostly hang out on Facebook. You can also read the first 5 issues of Ego Raven Air the First Unicorn for free in its original black and white format. But if you prefer your fantasy to be more of a Lord of the Rings type of adventure, you can follow the links to Tall Tales, TAILS online.com, and read the first 20 issues of Tall Tales for free. But you need it in a hard copy form. You need it like this. So it's on Kickstarter. Follow the links to Kickstarter now. Yes, absolutely. Right now. The links are in the show notes. 4 beautiful trade paperbacks for you to get your fantasy in general, furry fantasy, all the fantasy in 4 beautiful trade paperbacks. Links below.
Of course. And Mike, thanks for coming on, man.
Oh, let's see if I can't get through my closeout without robottings. The ultimate goal. Anyways, if you enjoyed hearing me babble on stuff, you can follow me on Twitter at ElysianFields_0. If you think that I have any bit of a good idea and you want to see what I can do as a writer, I have an Indiegogo campaign that is live that I am closing down this Friday. We are less than I want to say we're at 1,300 away from 10 grand.
Wow. Very nice, very nice, sir. And this book, honestly, I am so looking forward to this book on so many different levels.
It's going to be dumb fun. I'm even more excited for the second book now that I figured out what to call it. It's a good time. And if manga isn't your style, we have plenty of other stuff on the campaign as well, between Elysian Fields, which was my launching title, which is effectively Mortal Kombat with heroes of mythology from around the world, and The Embrace, which is my Crow-inspired dark take on the superhero genre, which has gotten a lot of positive response, and it's been the experience. If you've already supported me, thanks so much. If you haven't, love for you to check it out, and anything that you can do to help us, whether that's back or share, we greatly appreciate it. And we will also be coming to Kickstarter here soon.
Oh,
it's exciting.
All right, Mitch, tell me where we can find you, sir.
Hi, I'm Mitch Rogers, and you can find me down there at Linktree/Celtic Cross Studios. There you find my website, online comments, and social media.
All right, excellent. And of course, you can always find me at Linktree/C Michael Lanning. And of course, right here on Dispatches from Outside the Box, Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Next week, we'll continue our fantasy month with a space opera. So tune in. Let's see who shows up for that one. So anyway, unfortunately I don't have a word for the week, so we're gonna say ourselves out with this bump, and y'all have a good week.
Infamous gunslinger Desmond Gibbons, better known across the Wild West as the Cactus Kid, comes to the sleepy town of Clarkson. Trouble finds him in the unlikeliest of sources, the sheriff. After their conflict, the Cactus Kid finds himself inexplicably wearing the badge of a lawman. Later, while on the trail of a serial killer, he and his deputy run afoul of a powerful druid, and the events that lead to the Cactus Kid's transformation into the hulking, four-armed projectile reptile are even more than the druid bargained for. From the Wild West to current-day Los Angeles, where he meets superheroes Black Eagle and Red Hawk, and forms an uneasy alliance with the stunning but deadly Kitty Hawk. Join the projectile reptile on a journey of gunslinging druidic magic, superheroes, and artifacts. Projectile Reptile from Dojo Kun Comics, only on Indiegogo. Are you ready for the truly Wild West?